Hello, this is Martin Hill with LibertyFight.com and Don'tWakeMeUp.org, and I'm here with Kenny Capell. Hey, Kenny.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. We're going to talk about a problem that truck drivers have with law enforcement officers demanding ID across the United States without any warrant, without any probable cause. So, Kenny's a truck driver. Works a commercial operation, self-employed, runs with his wife, and when you're a truck driver, you have to haul the freight from point A to point B. And when you drive a team, one person is sleeping while the other is driving. That's what a team means. And they have all these federal rules, right? State rules, federal rules. How you doing, lady?
This is lady. Sorry, go on.
So they have all these rules that the person in the sleeper has to sleep 10 hours before they could drive. So we're obeying the federal laws, and at the same time, the officers are waking truckers up. And a lot of people say, oh, who cares? Don't be a baby. Just wake up. No. An officer can't go to your house and bang on your bedroom window and wake you up in the middle of the night. That's totally illegal. So why can they do it to truckers? They cannot. Because, like I said, the feds spend millions on sleep studies. It's very important to sleep. So they're waking people up. And they're also, if they wake him up, he has to restart his hours, restart his sleep time all over again. So, Kenny, that's the introduction to the people who see the ham, right?
Yeah, she is, big ham.
So tell me about what happened to you. Now, it happened a few times to you, and finally one time you said...
Right, enough's enough.
You said enough's enough. Yeah. I'm not going to show you my ID.
Right.
But tell from the beginning.
Well, back in August 2012, I was running with my brother-in-law, Jerry. We got into the Missouri scales there, and Jerry had stopped before we got there and put fuel in and was just a little bit heavier than 12,000 on the steers. The officer wanted him to adjust the weight before we left. After the officer did his initial inspection, he asked Jerry for my CDL while I'm in the sleeper sleeping. So that was my first incident. We complied at the time.
He woke you up. You were sleeping. Right. He woke you up, and you complied that time.
Basically, yeah. He had Jerry, my brother-in-law, the co-driver at the time, wake me up. Then we had on the March 28th. My wife, 2014, this year, my wife hit the northbound scales in Georgia on I-75, better known as Ringgold, Georgia scales.
Okay. And
the lady officer there actually demanded my driver's license after she did a paper inspection on my wife.
Okay.
My wife said she wasn't going to wake me up because I was in the sleeper, and she demanded my license again. She asked my wife, for it multiple times. Finally, my wife asked her, what did you want it for? And she replied that she just wanted to see if I had any warrants.
Okay.
My wife went inside with a copy of my license in the permit book. And that caused an issue with the officer. She still wanted the hard copy.
So she asked for your license, and you actually keep, which is not even required, you keep a copy of your license?
Correct.
And your medical card?
Correct.
And even a copy of your medical report, right?
Right.
Which none of that's even required, right?
Correct.
So you do that just to be accommodating.
Right. I did that so the information is available to whoever.
So they don't have to
my wife's permit and, all my wife's stuff is also in the permit book as well.
Okay. That wasn't good enough even?
That wasn't good enough.
Okay.
The officer demanded that she have the actual hard copy. So my wife came back out to the truck, woke me up, got it, went back inside. A few minutes later, came back, and then that was pretty much the end of the story.
Okay.
I had asked my wife to make sure she didn't put me on the inspection report.
Okay.
And my name and my driver's license number and everything appeared on the inspection report.
Now that means you have to, the 10-hour sleep you're getting has to be interrupted by law, and because she woke you up and put your name on there, you therefore have to restart your 10-hour sleep.
Correct.
Right?
So,
now, when you have to restart your 10 hours all over again, if you're on a limited time frame to deliver the freight from point A to point B, doesn't that screw up your job, your business?
Yes, it makes the load late every time.
But that's what truck drivers are for. They expedite. That's why you run a team.
Correct.
So what about the third time it happened?
The third time it happened, I figured same scale house, same inspector, on April 15th.
Less than a month after.
Less than a month.
Okay.
Same inspector, same scout house. Happens again, and this time I decided that the permit book had all the information she needs in it, and I wasn't going to get up and give her my actual CDL.
So you knew there might be.
I knew there might be some repercussions. Yes. The officer insisted that my wife get my CDL. My wife opened the curtain as I was getting dressed. The officer and my wife had argued a few minutes about getting my commercial driver's license, and at that point in time, I overheard the officer say to my wife, "Have you ever heard of obstruction of justice?" Which made me upset. So I got dressed. The first time this happened, I had 4.5 hours in the sleeper. This time it happened, I had 2.5 hours in the sleeper. So I got dressed and I tell my wife I'm probably fixing to go to jail. So I go inside the scout house and I ask the officer, "What probable cause do you have to demand my ID?" And she refuses to answer me. She doesn't say a word.
What's her name?
Her name is Leith Parsons.
Parsons.
Yes.
And she's with who?
She's with Georgia DMV.
Okay. DOT or?
DOT officer, yes.
DOT officer.
And anyway, I explained to the officer that we just went through this a little while ago, less than a month ago, a few weeks ago, and told her that there was a copy of everything she needed in the permit book. And, if that's not good enough, I'm sorry. Have a good night. I was going back to bed. And she asked me if I was going to comply and give her my CDL. And I told her again, you have a copy of it in the permit book. No, have a good night. At which point in time, she arrested me and charged me with obstruction of justice and took me to jail.
Now, when you said she, at that point in time, did she grab you or what? How did that?
She asked me to stay right where I was and did not want to let me leave the door. She, in fact, told my wife to stay outside while she put the cuffs on me and then took me over to the steps and set me down after she patted me down after she had the cuffs on.
Okay. And you're facing, what charges are you facing?
Obstruction of justice charges.
Is that a misdemeanor?
That is a misdemeanor
criminal
in the state of Georgia, yes. So it went from, it was given to me on a traffic citation, which they don't handle that in traffic court. The court date that was issued on the ticket was for July 18th of 2013 at 9 a.m. in the morning, which has already passed. There's no way to go back in time.
We give you a ticket with the date a year prior.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So technically, I should have had a bench court for my arrest and never left the jail.
So the bottom line is here, the Fourth Amendment. Is that your?
Correct. The Fourth Amendment was violated.
Why don't you just show them your ID? Why don't you just bend over and do that?
Well, it's more and more communistic every day. If we continue to give in to their demands and their threats, then we end up a socialist kind of nation.
Tyranny.
Now, exactly.
Wouldn't that be the same as if someone's sleeping in the house with the husband and wife, and then a cop comes and bangs on their window? Now, as a truck driver, you're living in the truck when you're working. That would be exactly the same. They can't just go over to somebody's house, bang on the window, and say, "Give me your ID," like some.
Correct.
In my case, I had two Texas Department of Public Safety officers do the same thing to me in 2010. I did comply under threat of arrest, and I filed 2 complaints, a state and federal, and within a month, the Texas Department of Public Safety admitted wrongdoing in writing, which from what I understand is very unusual.
Correct.
And they punished both officers, admittedly, corrective action taken against them and retraining provided. And then, on top of that, I sued them in federal court. And in the lawsuit, the Texas DOT was forced to release a memo, one of their internal memos, and what that said was even better. That said, the passenger in the sleeper is under no obligation whatsoever to comply with the request for ID.
Correct.
So that's the Texas DOT, the state law enforcement agency, admitting that I or you or anybody is not, they can ask for whatever they want.
Right.
But according to them, not me, according to them, we're not obligated to show anything. So that was pretty interesting. So even though this is a different state, these officers in all these states, and I have a whole list of troopers across the country who have been killed by tired truckers who just are killing cops everywhere, actually. And I have a compilation of those stories, so it's pretty insane, isn't it, for these cops to...
It is.
Just, why do they do that, you think, Kenny? What's this about?
I feel that maybe they have the badge and the gun and power to their head. That's what I feel, to be honest. I feel like because they have the law enforcement, some would say, under color of law.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because basically that's what it is. It's a violation of color of law. Using your authority as an officer to obtain information or personal belongings not belonging to the officer.
Mm-hmm. So you hope through this case to get publicity to number one, shame them is what I like to do. And what do you hope is the outcome of this case? Because they're actually charging you criminally.
Yes.
And by the way, Brown versus Texas, you familiar with that?
Yes, I am.
It went to the U.S. Supreme Court. A guy in Texas was walking down the street. The cop demanded his ID without cause. Right. He was arrested for a failure to, and he was convicted. However, it was overturned in the U.S. Supreme Court. And police just cannot do that. But despite all these dozens and hundreds of rulings,
they're still doing it. Yes.
Decades and decades later, they just keep doing it.
Exactly.
Really
and there's another court case that reached the Supreme Court level as well, Collender versus Lawson. And this fella, if you happen to Google search or look under YouTube, black guy gets stopped 15 times. He actually won his case in court. Same kind of deal. It went all the way to the Supreme Court, where you have to have probable cause or reasonable suspicion in order to ID someone. And I don't see where you would have even probable cause or suspicion when I'm behind that curtain laying in bed.
Right.
You know, there's obviously nothing they've seen because they haven't even seen me.
So basically, just put up the resistance, and and you're going to fight your case, and we'll keep updated on your case. Any parting words you want to say?
For those of us out here that have these kind of problems,
trying to make a living, you know, trying to honestly,
exactly,
businessman, self-employed, and you just keep...
It just keeps happening over and over and over again. If anybody has had this happen to them that has two names on the inspection report, please call OIDA and contact Gary Green with that information. He would like to have copies of that. OIDA is also looking into this case because they're saying that this is not right.
And that's the Owner-Operator Independent Driver Association.
Correct. Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association.
Press the red button.
No, not yet.
You can press the red button before